Hi, my name is Dan Schmitt, and this is Team Chicago Challenge. We're at Mid-Ohio. We're here for AMA Days, and we're with the AHRMA Vintage National Championship. Today we're going to be looking at the motocross action, and we're going to be looking at some of the trials riding, and then we're going to be looking at, next week's show, we'll be looking at the road racing and maybe some more of the trials event. So let's go check out the racing action, the motocross from Mid-Ohio.
First race we're going to look at is Sportsman 250 Experts. Jumping up front, it looks like 17D. That's Todd Hamilton from Pennsylvania on a Mako. Swing the camera back. You get the start of the combined Classic 250 Experts and Premier Lightweight jumping up front. Number 78 is Steve Tucker out of Canada on that 250 BSA. The Premier Lightweight Experts, we got Robert Grinder, number 19D on a Greaves, and Brian O'Connor in second place from Libertyville on a Ducati. The Classic 250 Intermediates, got Paul Hava from New Jersey on a BSA. As we watch Steve Tucker, Robert Grinder, Brian O'Connor. We swing the camera over. Here comes the Sportsman 250 Experts. 17D is Todd Hamilton. Second place is Douglas Wenzel. Third place is like Mike Bogia. And here comes the Classic 250 Experts. Got a battle developing. But this is Steve Tucker running Classic 250 Experts on the BSA. And right on him is Robert Grinder Jr., another expert running Premier Lightweight. And he's on a Greaves. 67 Greaves 250. See Brian O'Connor coming into the picture on that Ducati. 51Z is Rob Pesolo. We swing back over. And that Sportsman 250 still up front is Todd Hamilton from Pennsylvania on that Mako. This is battle developing for second between Mike Boglia and Douglas Renzel from New Jersey. Here comes that battle. Classic 250, Steve Tucker, 78. Premier Lightweight Expert 19D is Robert Grinder Jr. from Dixon, Tennessee on that Greaves. Classic 250 Intermediates, we got Paul Hava first, Mark Kuchnut from Quebec, Canada second. Coach Brian O'Connor from Libertyville on that Ducati. Darren Emzel from Maryland. It's on a 250 Honda. He's running Sportsman 250 Expert. But going on to pick up the win in the Sportsman 250 was Todd Hamilton. Second place was Mike Bigelow. Third place went to Douglas Wenzel. And in the Classic 250 Experts, picking up the win was Steve Tucker. For the intermediate, it was Paul Hava. Premier Lightweight Experts, first place was Robert Grinder. And Premier Lightweight Intermediate, we had Duncan Wright. As we're watching Todd Hamilton on that beautiful 250 Mako picking up the win in Sportsman 250 Expert. Next race we're going to look at is the age classes. Plus 30 Experts, any size motorcycle. 9Z is Greg Carter from Santee, California on a 250 Mako, and he's in the plus 30 class. We also have plus 40 Experts. Another two-wave start. These races are scored separate. 43 is Rick Hudson from Ontario, Canada. We're now looking at the plus 40 class. These are expert riders. Don't let the age deceive you. These guys are really hauling. Coming around again with the plus 30 is Greg Carter from Santee, California. Second place, Rick Hudson. We swing over to the plus 40 class. 31 is still up front. 13 is Gary Poland from Mooresville, Indiana. I'll tell you, this track inside the infield at Mid-Ohio turned out to be a great Motocross track, whoa, rider down. That was number 13. It's Gary Poland from Mooresville, Indiana on that bull taco. But they had a vote. Some of the riders were complaining about, why don't we run real motocross tracks? There was over 200 participants, and about 8 people voted for real motocross tracks, and about 195 voted to run these kind of original motocross tracks. This is what was run in the early days of motocross. I know, I went out and seen a few of them. Inter-Am they had back when they brought the Europeans over, and basically that's what they ran. They ran natural tracks, and this is an excellent example of what the tracks looked like back in the 50s, the 60s, and into the 70s, back when motocross was born. 61F is Jack Fleece, and he's leading with the plus 40 experts. Second place, Gene Ramsey from Casey, but with the plus 30 experts really hauling on that Mako. Number 9Z, Greg Carter from Santee, California. Now we're going to be looking at the novice riders. Look like, and look who's out there riding around. This is Fritz Kling's dad, Fred Kling, and he's riding a 400 Mako in the plus 40 novice. Here's the guy that raced years ago, road raced before I got into road racing. Did a little motocross, and maybe watches my show and says, boy, I ain't going to let Team Chicago have all the fun. So he's out there. In the plus 30 novices, you got a battle for the points. And Doug Schmitt from Michigan City, number 511, in the national points, he's right up there, so he's trying to get a good finish. But in the plus 30 novice, you got Robert Groves from Antioch, Tennessee, is leading, second place. Bradley Kennard from Des Moines, Iowa, the plus 40 novices. Up front is John Mansford. Second place is Bill Hanks. You watch Fred Kling, and Fred Kling's son, Fritz Kling, is one of the top road racers in the nation, and I'm sure if you watch my show, you've seen him many times. But here's Fred. He's put down the wrenches. Instead of tuning his son's fast Yamahas, he's out there having a great time. It's like Doug Schnitt's going by. Might be running third place from Michigan City. He's in a 74 Husqvarna, and he let me ride his 250 Honda out here at Mid-Ohio. And I'll tell you, I had a big fun. As you watch Doug coming through the switchback. Didn't get to see all the sections, but we got a pretty good view. It's a great spectator event. And the last race we're going to look at, jumping out front, and the premier 500 expert is Rick Doherty from Fresno, California, on a 62 BSA GS 500 or Gold Star 500. Now watch this guy ride this big motorcycle. He's really can teach you a thing or two. Also running is the plus 30 intermediates. Watch Brian O'Connor running third in the premier expert. He's on his 350 Ducati. Up front with the plus 30 intermediates is Joseph Light from Tyrone, Georgia, on a Bull Taco 360. We're going on to pick up the win with the plus 30 intermediates. First place was Joseph Light. Second place went to Tim Bauer. Third place went to Bill Patton. Fourth place went to Dave Kersey. And fifth place ended up with Mark Augustine, as Rick Doherty went on to pick up the win. Robert Poole was second, and Brian O'Connor was third in the premier 500 expert class.
And now we're going to go over and look at some of the trials riding, vintage trials riding with AHRMA at Mid-Ohio.
Well, they laid out 7 trial sections over in the woods section on the other side of the racetrack, behind the pit area. We're looking at section 5. Section 6. And she has one dab riding at BSA. And this is section 7. This is
Jim Viverito.
out of Chicago, and he made the smart move by running as a beginner. It sure looks easy, but to get used to riding, it's a little bit more difficult. Now we're going to go into the woods section. We're looking at an expert rider here. And it could be David Linder on that Honda. As he cleans the section, look how nice he goes through. And we even allow, AHRMA, there's even motocross bikes. There's no restriction, but riding a motocross bike through this section is, through any of the sections, a little bit tougher. I'm on my TY 250 Yamaha, 1974. This is an excellent bike to be running these vintage trials. This is section 1. You got a big mud pile to go into. See if I can make it nice and easy. Well, I had a dab down. I hit a tree. Well, looks like I didn't clean that section. Come back over to section 5. Wish they had numbers on these bikes. The ones that do have numbers tell you if they're experts, intermediates, novices, or beginners. There's a nice Boltaco. He's running a number 3 line. It's another Boltaco. Tell you want to see a wide selection of motorcycles. This is definitely an event to come out and watch. But I also think this is an event to come out and ride. Come back into section 3 now. Following a rider on one of the vintage bikes. Premier heavyweight. Could be Duncan Wright. Duncan White, 1 Premier heavyweight intermediate. This is section 5. It's Montesa going through section 6.
Jim Viverito.
Goes on and cleans section 6 as I start to pack up and head on over towards the road race course because I've got a big surprise for you. So let's go to the famous road course at Mid-Ohio. I get to ride the Mid-Ohio course. I've arranged this with Jeff Smith from AHRMA and Hugh Fleming with the AMA and the management at Mid-Ohio. I'm using the MCC Triumph Speed Triple. I've got a job to perform with the helmet cam out here at Mid-Ohio. Follow one of the most famous motorcycle racers and car racers to ever put a wheel on a racetrack. The MV Agusta 4-cylinder is John Surtees, the only man to be the Formula One Auto World Champion and 500 World Champion. And for a parade lap, and he's slowing down. I'm riding the wheels off this bike. But John Surtees is starting to leave me. But I'll tell you, this is one view that hundreds of the top riders in the world got to see following John Surtees, because at that time he was one of the premier racers. Thank the guys at MCC, the Motorcycle Center in Villa Park, Illinois, who let me ride this 3-cylinder Triumph. But I did have an opportunity to interview his most famous motorcycle racer over and talk to John Surtees.
I'm with John Surtees, who was former world champion road racing. And what years were you world champion motorcycle?
My motorcycling championship started in 1956 and ran through to the end of 1960 when I transferred over to the Formula One car world.
Right.
And then I was world champion on cars, Formula One in 1964.
Okay, so you're the only one that's ever done world champion bikes and world champion cars.
Oh, to date, yes. To date, yes.
Right. I mean, there are guys that run Formula One cars and then come over here and run the Indy Series. That's the common thing now. Or run the Indy Series and go run Formula One. And there's been some dirt trackers. Joe Leonard, he used to run dirt track in the U.S. and he went over and ran NASCAR. But you really stand out as far as my memory. When I was reading magazines back in the old days, your name was a person I was reading about. So what kind of bikes did you run during those years?
Well, my first win ever was with a Vincent Grey Flash. I was serving an apprenticeship at Vincent's, and I just sort of put the conrod of my 250 Triumph through the crankcase. So Dad, who was a distributor for Vincent's, sort of spoke about it, and they decided to deduct £1 per week out of my £2.50, which was about $5, I suppose, or something, wages per week, for me to have this box of Grey Flash parts. So I built that up, and my second race out on that, I actually won the race, and that sort of led to where I had a very good period on the short circuits. I then passed to Norton, went into the Norton Works team, and then at the end of the period with the Works team, they reached a decision where they wouldn't go World Championship racing. So I was very restricted there. So I said, right, well, we'll look for something else. It was a chance that I went to BMW, because I'd ridden a BMW in the German Grand Prix, but they were hesitating about whether to go racing and not go racing. And then MV Agusta said, well, come and try ours. So I went to MV Agusta, and this was 1956. And
so how do you consider racing back in those days compared to racing nowadays? Do you think there's more people racing now just because there's more money around, or were there a lot of racing back then too?
There's a lot of racing. I mean, I used to, when I was racing in England, while I was an apprentice and getting away at the weekend, I would be doing 75 races a year. I mean, it's a lot of racing. I'd be going off, and Mum would drive a little van we had, and I'd do a race on the Friday when I got time off of work, and a race on a Saturday and another one on the Sunday, probably. And so there's a lot of racing. You've got to remember that what wasn't happening, the racing wasn't quite so worldwide. We didn't come, for instance, to a World Championship event in America, and we didn't go off to sort of Australia or anywhere. So it was largely throughout Europe, but awful lot of racing. You've got to think that the crowds that we used to get at places like Nürburgring and the Dutch Grand Prix, 150,000, 200,000 people would all come along, and you had probably, you know, something like a dozen factories who were all very actively competing for a lot of that period. So it was a very live period. But of course, I mean, it did change. It changed first of all with one or two of the Italian companies pulling out, and then of course you had the new era come, the Japanese,
right.
Honda leading the way in with their machines. I sort of had seen this partly coming. In some ways, you know, I would have liked to have led a double life even then, because the sort of machines like Mike Harewood rode, the 504 and things, I'd love to have had a go at that. But I was rather busy tied up with four-wheelers at the time.
Okay, so what do you think of Mid-Ohio? What is your feeling about coming out here, riding this bike, and doing a few laps out here in Mid-Ohio?
Well, it's a bit of a responsibility, you know, coming out and sort of finding your way around the circuit, just doing a couple laps each day and jumping on a rather important piece of machinery like this. I used to own this before Mr. George Barber of the Barber Museum down in Birmingham purchased it, but he kindly makes it available to me on a few occasions. So, you know, I get my instructions, you know, we want to keep it all together. So the important thing, though, is that you've got such a wonderful atmosphere here. You see such a family occasion with, you know, lots of youngsters here. It's rather good to be able to be part of a scene which is saying that, you know, it is good to look to the past, to think about the pleasure of today also, and perhaps even a better tomorrow. And here you've got a little bit of everything. You've got a bit of the past, a bit of the present, and with all the major manufacturers, well, a lot of them coming here and participating and bringing along their modern wares, you've got a link between the past and the present and the future, which I think makes this event such a extraordinarily good one.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's great talking to you, and let's get back to some more of the racing action with AHRMA at Mid-Ohio.
Now we're on the Mid-Ohio Road Course, and we're looking at 500 Premier Class. Up front is Stephen Matthews on that Barber Museum Matchless G50. It's a 500cc single. He's really hauling down his back straight. Second place is Todd Henning on a 68 Honda 500. Got Rusty Lowry's out there on his Harley Davidson. Jay Richardson's on a Honda. Still up front is Stephen Matthews. And Todd Henning now on this 68 Honda 500. The 500 twin. Single overhead cam. Battle for third place is Rusty Lowry on the Harley Davidson and AR 750. That's a side valve 750. Fourth place, it's like Jay Richards on that 68 Honda 498. Rusty Lowry trying to get around him in the keyhole. Ralph Ura, Jerry Woods on a 500 Triumph. Going on to pick up the win was Stephen Matthews. Todd Henning was second. Rusty Lowry is third. Jay Richardson fourth. And Ralph Ura was fifth place. Next race we're going to look at is Open Battle of the Twins by BMW. And Formula 2 Battle of the Twins by BMW. Up front, James Kusa on a Ducati 916. The Open Battle of the Twins, they're allowing the modern bikes. It's an added event. It's not the common event that they run with the Battle of the Twins. Got BMWs out there. It's like a Kawasaki. Got Honda Hawks. Pete Johnson's leading in Formula 2. On a Moto Guzzi, Chad Healy. Coming by was like Dr. David Kiefer on that 94 Ducati 955. James Kusar second. James Lickward's third. David Fine on a Moto Guzzi running fourth. Formula 2, Pete Johnson on a Moto Guzzi. Chad Healy is running second. Third place, looking at Tom Benedict on a Honda. He's running third. Going on to pick up the win was James Kusar in Open Battle of the Twins, and Pete Johnson won Formula 2 by BMW. And the last race we're going to look at is Bears. That's British, European, American Racing. It's the same series they run in Europe. It's open to modern bikes, twin cylinder. No 4-valve heads, 3-cylinder Triumphs, twin-cylinder Harley Davidsons. Up front is Pete Johnson on a Moto Guzzi. Second place looks like James Wickward on a Ducati. Kelly Newman is on a Ducati. Al Charles is on a Ducati. As we swing back, coming off the front straightaway, Pete Johnson is still up front on that Moto Guzzi 1200. James Wickward on a Ducati is running second. Kelly Newman third. As we swing back in sixth place is Greg Fields on the Triumph Speed Triple. It's the MCC Speed Triple, the one I use with the Team Chicago helmet cam to follow John Surtees. It's the first time Greg has raced this bike. He's having a great time out here at Mid-Ohio. Music for the show by Engine, Mike Preetz, Intrigue, and Travesty. And all this music recorded at Fireside Studios, Westchester, Illinois, as Greg Fields heads off to the sweeping right-hander, and we get a sweeping view from Mid-Ohio.
For more information on American Historic Racing Motorcycles Association, their website is AHRMA.org. For Mid-Ohio Road Course, just go to midohio.com. And please excuse some of the bad audio in this production. Remember, this U-matic tape I copied it from is 28 years old. To contact me, and I love to hear from my audience, it's teamdan45@gmail.com. Remember, you can always search on YouTube with Dan Schmitt Motorcycle Racing for great motorcycle racing action, Dan Schmitt Politics, to learn what makes America great. And I highly encourage you to visit the World of Motorcycle Museum. They're in Winamac, Indiana, 4 miles south of North Judson, Indiana on Highway 39. But give them a call first at 574-896-3172. It's a great trip and a great collection of motorcycles. And to pick up your copy of the Team Chicago History Package, go to Rich's Yamaha in Lockport, Illinois. But give them a call first at 815-838-8130. Their website is richesyamaha.com. Pick up your package of the Team Chicago History. And I highly encourage you to visit a Walneck swap meet. If you want to learn more about motorcycles, there's nothing like going to a motorcycle swap meet. Here's a few dates. His website is walneckswap.com. Got Woodstock, Morris, Shepherdsville, Princeton, and Springfield, Ohio. It was a great weekend at Mid-Ohio.